Hello, friends. Christina here, and welcome back to another episode of Pickles and Vodka, a mental health podcast. If you're wondering where Lauren is, she is out of town this weekend at her mother's wedding, which we talked about on our last episode. So next week, we'll both be back to talk about that, I'm sure. But for this week's episode, I wanted to try something a little different. As you may know, I've started writing on Substack lately. My publication is called Crisis Corner, and it's where I post a lot of my more vulnerable writing, even more vulnerable than I usually share on the podcast. So as of today, I have been writing on there for a little over a month, which is really exciting. And I know a lot of you have followed me over there and subscribed, which thank you so much. I really appreciate it. When I started writing on Substack, I wanted it to be a place where I share my more vulnerable moments as I go through this mental health crisis. And one of the ways that I'm trying to do that is through audio journals, which if you've listened to this podcast for any amount of time, you might have heard me share them here and there. They're basically snapshots from my brain in real time. And so I've started this little side project, Field Notes from Crisis Corner, which is a monthly podcast, I guess, where I share some of my audio journals from the last month. I mean, it's basically another way to be vulnerable because I don't have enough of those. So today I have released the first episode of that side project, and I'm just going to play it here now in the Pickles and Vodka feed. If you like what you hear, please go to xtinajumper.substack.com and subscribe. Again, you can be a free or a paid subscriber. It doesn't matter to me. Your support means the world, regardless. Oh God, all this talk about subscribing and money is making me uncomfortable. But that's just me. Without further ado, I guess, I'm going to just start playing the first episode from Field Notes. In the meantime, we love you all. And we look forward to seeing you here next week for a real episode. Hello, and welcome to episode 1 of Field Notes from Crisis Corner. I'm Chris, and this is my crisis. If you're listening to this, you probably subscribe to my Substack, Crisis Corner. You might also know me from my other podcast, Pickles and Vodka, which I co-host with my friend Lauren, which is all about mental health and the struggles that everyday people face on a day-to-day basis. However, this podcast is not going to be like Pickles and Vodka. Calling it a podcast even feels strange. I'm not really sure what it is. So if you're familiar with my writing, as of today, Sunday, May 12th, 2024, I have been writing on Substack for a little over 5 weeks, which is incredible because I never thought I'd be able to stick to a writing schedule. I really appreciate everyone who has read my posts, liked them, commented on them, joined my chat. It's all very exciting, and I'm very much looking forward to getting to know the community here and helping more people feel less alone. Because let's face it, we're all in a crisis of some sort. But you might be asking, why a podcast? Why Field Notes? And the reason is, I have always been a huge journaler. The kind of writing that I do would not be possible without my journaling practice. My written journal entries are the basis for my published pieces. It helps keep me honest and vulnerable. But with that said, what ends up published online on my Substack, I've usually had a few months to sit on the work and polish it up a little bit. And while the outcome is still vulnerable and still feels raw, it's not as raw and as vulnerable as it could be. Because at the end of the day, it's a product. So what I want to do with this project is go a step beyond sharing my written journal entries and give my subscribers a glimpse behind the scenes into my brain. And the way that I accomplish that is by recording audio journals. I've been making them for quite a few years now, And what I do is I take out my phone and I hit record and I just start talking. And it allows me to be a lot more honest than I would be if I was writing it down. What the audio journals provide is a snapshot into a particular moment in time. And the reason that they're so important to me is because it's real. And sure, I have shared them on my other podcast before. I've also transcribed them and used them as part of published pieces, but for the most part, I record them for myself. I never expect them to see the light of day. And so what I'm about to play is a selection of 6 audio journals that I recorded in between starting my Substack and now. And it's meant to be kind of a companion to the pieces that I've published in the last month. You might recognize a lot of the themes as stuff that I've written about, but this will give you an even closer look into my brain and how I react live in a crisis. So if you have not caught up on Crisis Corner, which is my Substack / personal blog, I recommend you go subscribe if you haven't done so already. I really wanted to put out something extra in addition to my weekly writing. That's all I'm hoping to do with this, is just share some of what goes on behind the scenes and give people a chance to get to know me better. Because writing about every embarrassing, intimate moment on the internet isn't vulnerable enough, I guess. In the future, I might make these episodes only available to paid subscribers, but for now, since it's just a little experiment, this one's going to be free for all. Before I play, I have to say that there is heavy eating disorder and substance abuse content, so just listen at your own discretion. If you're someone who worries about me, like my mother, maybe go find another podcast to listen to. Maybe don't subscribe to my Substack. All right, let me know what y'all think. And again, I'll be putting these out hopefully once a month, in addition to my weekly blog entries. So go subscribe if you haven't already. You can follow me on Instagram at xtinajumper, and you can find my other podcast, Pickles and Vodka, a mental health podcast, wherever you stream those. All right, here we go. I'm sitting in my car last night with another bottle of wine in my trunk, even though I told myself I would try to go tonight without buying any more. I've bought wine almost every single day for the last I don't know how many days. It's a problem. It's an expensive problem. And it's not bringing me anything good. I don't know why I keep doing it. It's making me do things like purge and self-harm, which are things that I would never do sober. At least not at this point. At least that's what I say. It's making me gain weight and feel puffy and bloated, and my skin isn't great. And you'd think those would be all reasons enough to deter me. Because, it's not like I get withdrawals every day if I stop. I don't even know. I find all sorts of ways to paint myself like a bad person, not someone who's struggling with addiction. I bought a book of sheet music today for $11 online because it's the same cost of a bottle of wine. And I told myself I can have it as a reward if I didn't buy wine. And then I went out and bought wine anyway. But it is 6:44 p.m. and there's been a lot of days where I've started drinking at 3 or even 1. So this is still a victory for me, I guess. I took a shower today. I took out the trash. I did the litter. I worked on my disability claim. I texted some people. I tried so hard to set up a plan to get me out of the house. And I did go over to my sister's house to let out her dog for her, but I didn't see another person all day. And it sucks because I'm lonely and I'm having a good hair day. And sometimes I just want to socialize, but I have to remember that I can't depend on other people for my recovery. Like, me going out and buying wine in some ways feels like an act of, not rebellion, dissatisfaction that I can't hang out with anyone today. Did I actually try calling people and being like, hey, I'm trying not to drink, can you help? No, of course not. That's not what I do. That would make me feel guilty. And that's the thing. If I don't hang out with people, I feel lonely and sad. If I hang out with people, I feel anxious and guilty. So that's why I'm drinking tonight. Last night started out like normal, just drinking, watching Netflix. At one point, I took Benadryl, and I forgot that I took Benadryl, and I was making posts on social media like, my head feels really heavy. Oh shit, I took Benadryl, and I forgot. Hopefully it wasn't a high dose, LOL. And then that's the last thing I remember. I woke up in my bed with blood on my sheets by my knee, and I look down and I have this huge gash in my knee that's still bleeding, and it wasn't self-inflicted. At least I don't think it was. And so I get up, I walk into the office, and I see my big gold mirror that was on the window was now on the floor, and there were shards of glass everywhere. I literally have no recollection of breaking the mirror. I don't know if I did it. I don't know if it was an accident or on purpose. I don't know if the cats might have done it, and maybe I cut my knee while I was trying to clean it up. But it's obvious that the gash in my knee came from a shard of glass. And oh my God, I'm so scared. I haven't blacked out like that since New Year's Eve. And so I must have taken, I think I maybe took 3 Benadryl minimum. Because when I take 1 or 2 with alcohol, I don't black out like that. And I cleaned up the glass, and I went to finish the wine, and then I realized the bottle was gone. I totally finished that whole big bottle last night. And so I just took more Benadryl and went to bed. After cleaning up the glass, I was so mortified and terrified, and I woke up and my knee was still bleeding. It's like a huge gash, and I feel like I might need to get stitches, but I don't want to leave the house. I don't want to tell people about this. I don't want it to have happened. And throughout it, I'm still thinking about, should I get more wine tonight? That's the scariest part of all. If this isn't enough to stop me, like, what is? And I just don't know what to do. I'm such a fucking mess, like more than people even think. So I spent the last week in a behavioral health unit after reaching a point of crisis, and now I'm on meds. I'm sober from alcohol and Benadryl, and things are looking up for the first time in, I don't know, months. But I feel like crawling out of my skin. I feel like I'm not doing enough. I feel like something terrible is still going to happen. I feel like I'm missing something, like I'm forgetting a really important piece of the puzzle that's going to come and bite me in the ass later. And I still feel like I'm not doing enough, even though I'm doing so much. Like, I was just on the phone with my brother telling him everything I did today, and he was like, damn, dude, you did a lot today. And I agree, like, I did a lot today, but it doesn't feel like it. And I'm so exhausted right now. I'm on these new meds, like I said, and they make me really tired, and all I want to do is rest, but it's 5:32 p.m. I know if I take a nap, I won't be able to sleep later, and so I'm trying to busy myself around the house. I'm trying to write, but then I get distracted, and before I know it, like 15 more minutes have passed, and I still feel just as bad as I did before. And I even feel stupid making this because I feel like there's nothing to talk about. Like, now that I'm not in a crisis, I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know who I am. I don't know what the point is. And again, I feel stupid making this because, of course, the point is to focus on recovery, to focus on taking care of myself and doing what I can every day and forgiving myself if I'm not doing all the things I want to do. All I have to do is some of the things. All I have to do is one thing, which I've done, and then some. But I don't know. It just feels weird. It feels uncomfortable. It feels empty. In many ways, it feels like I have to teach myself how to live again. And I don't know what that means. I don't know what my body needs. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this newfound stabilization. Because I do feel stable. I feel like I'm in a pretty good place. My brother said he thinks I'm doing better than I ever was when I was quote unquote sober for 4 years. And I guess I agree. It feels like things are finally starting to move on. Like I'm starting to move on. And I feel like I should be a lot happier. I feel like I should be a lot more accomplished, but I don't feel like it. And the emptiness of this apartment is just like really starting to get to me. I'm worried that if I go to the store, I'm going to get wine. I know I shouldn't, but I can't stop thinking about how nice that would be to just open a bottle of wine, have a glass, enjoy it, knowing that I worked hard today. Like, surely there's other ways to celebrate my accomplishments. I just don't know what they are. Like, I'm supposed to be creating an evening routine right now that I'm look forward to, that incorporates self-care. But like, I feel like in the past when I've done self-care, it's just been like to check something off the list. But doing self-care just because I deserve it and because I want to, like, that's a foreign concept to me. I just wish I was a cat, because they practice self-care all day. Like, that's all they do, and they don't feel guilty about it. Like, I'm looking at Fang and he's just lying in front of the heater, sprawled out, licking himself and stretching, and he looks so happy and his belly's full, and I'm jealous, man. I want to be that carefree. I just listened to a guided meditation on trauma and self-nurture, and it was really good. It was really hard to focus at first, and I wanted to stop it, but I continued. And I don't know if I did it right, whatever that means, but it did make me think a lot about the way that I perceive self-nurture. And the way that I usually perceive self-nurture is that it's selfish, which obviously has the word self in it. It's selfish. It's not a bad thing. But when I was trying to engage in the thoughts of self-nature, I felt this sense of embarrassment, guilt, even shame. Like, I'm doing something silly. I'm doing something wrong, or I am wrong for doing this, for focusing so much on myself. And like, why do I have to spend all of this energy focusing on myself and nurturing myself and making myself feel better? Like, it's just, it seems really limiting, because like, why do I have to spend all this energy on myself? Can't I use some of that energy for other things? And I think I'm supposed to, because I'm the only one who has to exist as me. I'm the only one. And so nobody else is going to give as much of a shit about me as I do myself. And I'm supposed to give a shit about myself. I'm supposed to be selfish, because guess what? I am the main character of my own life. Just like my neighbor is the main character of their lives. My sibling is the main character of their life. And I think it's such a moral thing. I turn it into a moral thing. Like, there's only so much attention I can give myself before it turns into something reprehensible. But honestly, even if I am giving myself all of the attention, that's normal, because I have to live in this body, in this life, with these experiences, and it's okay to be selfish. I binged and purged today, very intentionally. It was kind of like the last time I drank, where I felt like I needed to get it out of my system. I felt like it was within my rights to do this. It's a choice I'm making, and the only one I'm hurting is myself. And also, my therapist told me to pursue pleasure this week, or like rather explore the concept of pleasure. And I tried that, but while I was doing it, there was a point where it wasn't pleasurable anymore. And that's what I feel like all of my pleasurable experiences end up culminating in, is just, they're not pleasurable anymore. It's like I need to ruin it. I can't just enjoy a good thing. I have to overindulge. I have to transform it into a weapon almost. And I don't know what a healthy relationship with pleasure looks like in every context, right? With sex, I don't know what that looks like. With my body, I don't know what that looks like. With work, not that you get pleasure from work, but I feel like you can find pleasure in any activity, and I just ruin it every time. I don't even know what I'm talking about. I took 3 Benadryl, and I walked out here to the same spot I was last time I made an audio journal, except it's like dusk now. There was a moment after purging where I felt valid, and I felt good. I felt clarity. And like the whole day I had kind of been thinking, oh man, I'm doing pretty well. Maybe the meds are working. Maybe I'm actually on the other side of this. And then my next thought was, well, why are you even applying for disability? You're not going to get approved. What are you taking all this time off work for? And the answer is I need to take time off work for health, regardless of whether or not I get disability. It'll be good to take time off for my health. I have money to last for a while. Like, I will be fine. I know I'll be fine. But in that moment, I was like, that's the problem. You're fine. And so binging and purging in that moment felt like proving to myself that I was sick, proving to myself like, this is why you're seeking disability. And I hate that I'm so predictable. And I hate that I fall into these patterns, and there's an event right now I could be going to, but I feel disgusting. That's another thing. I had no makeup on, my hair wasn't styled, I was wearing clothes I didn't really care about, so I was like, oh, that's permission to binge and purge. Like, all the stars are aligned. Like, how stupid is that? Yeah, and instead of going to this open mic, like, writing event, I'm sitting here on the bench, vaping in the rain, and that feels shitty. I just don't want to spend my life feeling like I'm waiting for good things to happen. Like, good things are happening. I just need to enjoy them. I need to take pleasure in what I have, and I can't fucking do that. It's interesting. The more stable my life gets, the crazier I feel. And the crazier my life gets, the more, not stable I feel, but the more sane I feel, I guess. Like, I feel like normal when everything is on fire around me. It just feels like things have always been. But when I start getting my shit together, when I start getting medicated, when I start connecting with people around me, when I start taking care of myself, when things work out, shocker, that's when I feel the most unhinged. That's when I feel like I trust myself the least, because historically, I always fuck it up. I find a way. And I can see it happening again right now. I can see myself starting to undo a lot of the progress I've made in the last few months from hell. And I've worked really hard to be here, and things are looking up. And I asked myself in the shower today, what if things work out? Like, I was worried about finding a roommate, because that's something I need to do this week. I need to look for a roommate. I was starting to feel really anxious about it. Like, I need to make sure that they are COVID safe. I need to make sure they're queer affirming. I need to make sure so-and-so qualifiers here. And I was getting really scared that I would never find a person like that. And then another voice was like, well, what if you do? What if it works out? And I felt like crying, because I felt like if that exists, I surely won't be able to have it, because I never let myself let things work out, if that makes sense. That's just like too easy, right? And I just feel really defeated and frustrated with myself today. And then when I feel this way, I feel like the only way to fix it is by throwing myself into productivity. And I do a lot of cleaning, for instance. It's like symbolic, scrubbing away my sins. I always get a lot clean after I fuck up. But then once it's done, it's like, oh, it's clean. Now let's get it dirty again. Like, that's the cycle. I fix my mistakes, I make more mistakes. I fix those mistakes, I make even more mistakes. And I'm just really tired of it. I say I want to have a normal life. I say that I want things to work out. But I think if I'm being honest, I'm afraid of that happening because it's unknown and because I'm afraid that it won't last. This has been an episode of Field Notes from Crisis Corner. I'm Christina Jumper. You can find my writing on xtinajumper.substack.com. You can also find me on Instagram at xtinajumper. I co-host a weekly mental health podcast called Pickles and Vodka, which can be found wherever podcasts are streaming. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.